Make every night a wonderful journey, no matter where you are. Good night, sweet dreams. The first story, Good's Diner. Someday, you will be driving down along the lane highway. There will be no other cars, no signs, no animals, not even any birds flying in the sky. Just you and the road, stretching for infinity through a barren desert. You can drive forever down this road, never wavering. You can turn around and duck your back if you like. Nothing will happen. You will continue to drive on forever, never seeing an end. However, you might start to worry that you will run out of gas. If you look down to check your fuel gauge, you will notice it is a bit lower than the last time you checked. Whenever that was time does not matter still. It will not be anywhere near empty, so you will continue to drive. You might also feel a bit hungry. If you are to check your pockets or car for some food, you will not find any. You won't care much, as you are only a little hungry. You will continue to drive on, down the endless road. As you drive on and on, you will grow hungrier. Your fuel gauge will be a bit lower every time you look at it. Eventually, when you have grown famished and you are nearly out of gas, you will see an old-fashioned gas station and diner. A large sign saying Good's Diner will stand, with an O missing. Gas prices are listed below, but they are not of importance. You will pull up, relieved to have found this place in your time of need. On this desolate stretch of road, you will fill up your car with gas and go into the diner to eat. You will see a bar on your right, with several small stools. Some booths are to your left, and some bathrooms are in the back. The floor is covered with worn, checkered tiles, and the walls are panelled with wood. If you fans spin lazily in the ceiling above, your eyes will turn back to the bar, and you will see a man standing there, casually wiping at the counter with an old, torn raggy. As a large black man, maybe 60, with white hair and rough stubble. You can see the life and the creases in his face, as if he has experienced many things that have worn their way through from his mind to the surface of his skin. You can barely see his eyes, but you can tell they have warmth and wisdom deep within. And when he looks up at you, you can sense something different about them. They say eyes are the windows to the soul, but this man's eyes are his soul, his very being contained within them. You will find yourself lost for a moment, but almost immediately you will snap back to reality, remembering your hunger. You will sit down to eat. Looking around, you will notice there are no menus or signs saying what there is to order. If you ask the man for a menu, he will give you one, with all the typical diner food choice. She will prepare whatever you order and serve you with a little conversation. After you eat, you will pay the man, thank him, and leave. If you happen to look back, you would see the man with an expression of sadness, a sadness so great it makes your heart stop for a second. Then you will turn your head and drive, trot on towards your destination. You will reach it and forget all about the diner. But if you choose, do not ask for a menu. Ask instead, "What do you have to offer me?" The man will smile and respond, "What do you wish to have?" At this point, you can ask for anything in the world, anything you wish to know, or own, or be. You can ask for, and the man will grant it to you. You can ask how the JFK assassination really happened. You can ask to be able to fly. You can ask for a car from the future. Anything, the man will give it to you after receiving it. You will leave. If you look back this time, the man will seem grief-stricken, almost at the point of tears. You will take off to your destination, but it will be emptiness. You will be left alone with yourself and whatever it is you wished for. However, if you are brave, There is one thing you can ask for, something terrible, yet powerful you must ask, for the last slice of pie in the large dish on the counter. When you ask for it, the man will be solemn, and give you a quiet smile. As you wish, he will say, lifting the lid. He will serve the slice to you on a small silver dish, along with a small fork. Take the fork and eat the pie. It will have no particular taste to you. Your tongue will not be able to identify it. Eat it all, and then return your plate to the man. You will reach for your wallet. You will simply shake his head and say, "It's on me." You will thank him and leave, getting into your car and driving away. If you glance back this time, the man will be pensive, looking away into the distance. What does this spy do? Well, once you begin driving, you will begin to contemplate things. Thoughts will travel into your head, and you will know the origins of the universe. You will know who the true entity, the creator of this world is. You will know the secrets of the afterlife, and know everything of who you are. And only once you fully comprehend this information will you leave the road. The second story, jealousy. A cold and empty void was all there was. When it began, black space, devoid of color or warmth. When the change came, it began with a mysterious whisper, an eerie howl that sounded from afar, echoing through the darkness. The sound grew and swelled, taking on a melody, a beautiful, simple lilt that repeated endlessly. This musical entity had no name, no identity or solid body, but from its beauty was born a nebulous cloud of emotion, happiness. Happiness filled the empty void of the dark, listening to the sonorous music that birthed it, feeding on the melody, the rhythm and beat. The misty emotion matured into a healthy, colorful fog of yellow light, swirling, pulsing and flowing along to the music. Warmth developed within the veil, and soon the coldness of the outside void was replaced by a soft, fuzzy feeling of warm comfort. The cloud grew and thickened with joy and pleasure, energy and excitement. It got so big, so strong that within its body, happiness knew of little sprites that danced through the fog. Nymph-like spirits twirled and leapt through the smoky interior of their world, knowing nothing but the happiness that they sprang from. They came in all sizes and shapes, bouncing and wagging about, spinning with one another in circles green and blue, red and gold. They explored all colors, transforming to the notes of the music that carried them on and on in their endless cavorting. As the music continued, its heedless rhapsody and happiness continued to expand through the darkness of the void. The sprites found that their world was taking on more definite shape and detail. What was once an amorphous, yellow nebula no longer felt so evenly spread. Thicker concentrations of golden yellow joy and pleasure swirled, accumulating greater mass, looming over lighter, airy fields of weaker happiness. Sprites danced within these growths, occupying the spaces, leaving those without to flit through the diluted mist, seeking more of the emotion. From without the concentrations, one hungry sprite danced and sang, running mostly on energy and excitement, appreciating what joy and pleasure it could find when it suddenly came upon the greatest concentration of happiness throughout the void. It was in this mass of all the elements shone with a glorious, golden power that stunned the hungry sprite, and within this cloud, within a cloud, danced a pair of loving nymphs, hugging, kissing, laughing and playing inside their bubble of sheer ecstasy. The hungry sprite could not find any happiness to compare with the explosion of joy and pleasure, energy and excitement found in that central blob, and with a terrible, shuddering convulsion of realization, the starved, minor deity knew an aeon feeling. Jealousy was born, spoiled, rotten. Putrid envy coursed through the sprite's form and stained the mist around it, as it stared up at the golden glow of the massive pillar of happiness before it. The sprite could only feel its new emotion growing stronger. The warmth that filled the cloud of happiness now began to feel constricting on the jealous sprite. It choked and gagged on the lukewarm air around it. The music still played on around it, but now it felt different. For the jealous sprite it sounded taunting and sordid. The sprite knew distaste for the first time, not only with the object of its jealousy, but with its own envious feeling as well. Desperate to move away from its new green existence, the spirit embraced another new feeling, the distaste for the others as well as itself, and depression was born. Now depressed, the sprite transformed from green to blue, a deep, dark shade that almost appeared as a hole in the gigantic cloud of happiness that surrounded it. A little void in the mist its octane sound, drenched in tearful sorrow as the spirits all around it continued to dance and play. The heat that had comforted its body began to dissipate, seeping out of its body, leaving it cold and lonely. The music went on, now beautiful, but tragic to the sad sprite's ears. Within their shining globe of concentrated happiness, the spirit coupled and stung, and all around them countless other sprites laughed and danced, jumped and sang. The lone, sad sprite went unnoticed, ignored it, felt pain within its form, an aching sensation that drove it beyond sadness to something new, something different from depression. What could be worse than depression? The sprite thought. It focused on the pain, the frustration, the anger. Blood red, dripping with fury, burning like an angry star within the soft yellow cosmos around it. The spirit raged in fire of its own making now. Some of the sprites nearby recognized this new, different emotion, and wilted in its presence, fleeing away. The yellow light of happiness scattered from the red glow of the angry sprite. Once cold and shivering, the spirit felt hot now. Not a comfortable warmth like that he felt, but a maddening inferno of painful heat. The music had grown fierce and wild, taking on an attitude of violent passion that stirred the angry spirit, energized by something other than happiness. The sprite knew a purpose other than to dance and sing, ran and play, focused on the source of all its terrible changes. Every horrifying revelation it had suffered had come from a single original source, that golden ball of light at the center of everything, and those happy, oblivious lover sprites within, pushing through other oblivious sprites of happiness. The angry spirit burned its way across the cloud of happiness, shoved right into the bubble of golden joy, pleasure, energy and excitement, and attacked the sprite that had triggered the jealousy, the depression, and the furious rage. The happy sprite knew nothing of these ugly emotions, and was too stunned to react. It was torn apart in a second by the furious violence of the angry spirit. The shock of the attack rippled through the entire cloud of happiness. The music stopped, and a heavy silence fell over the sprites as their world of yellow joy, pleasure, energy and excitement began to fade away, fall apart, in the long, empty silence. As the color and emotions began to fade, a flashing pattern of red and blue lights shone from the far corners of the empty void. Cold, hard feelings came in to take charge. Authority, judgment and punishment took hold of the angry spirit, and it felt helpless in the arms of these strong, foreign gods. It knew yet another emotion as they carried it away into the darkness. Fear, A loud smack brought Henry back to reality. He jerked up at the sound, pulling his eyes away from his computer screen for again. Ayman was looming over his desk, glaring down at him. Henry, I read your first draft of the Raver murder trial. It's a bunch of nonsense. I don't know if you're trying to be funny, or just piss me off. But you better write up a proper report before I can you for good. Hear me? Henry frowned, and nodded. His own creative writing did not suit his career as a reporter on the crime beat of the Daily News. It was bothersome that he could not put his own ideas into his reports, but there was absolutely no room for his every once in a while. He just had an explosion of repressed creativity and accidentally turned his editor. Oh well, back to work. Several witnesses saw murder committed first, and at the underground nightclub, the Cavern, the morning of August 4th around 3 a.m. These witnesses, including the girlfriend of the victim actress and alternative model Natasha Vicks, in worst and in confused to see a member of the audience push through the crowd of dancers, climb onto the stage and attack DJ Wolfie, striking him repeatedly with both fists until the victim was dead. The defendant claimed to be suffering from temporary insanity, induced by a number of different controlled substances and hallucinogenic drugs taken prior to the rave that night. Several doctors and admitted users of the drugs in question were sworn in and testified. They all confirmed that none of the chemicals found in the defendant's system were known to cause negative feelings of any kind, and certainly were not consistent with violent crime. During his time on the stand, being cross-examined by the prosecution, the defendant admitted to having feelings of jealousy towards the DJ, whose girlfriend he coveted. He also vehemently accused the victim of playing music that manipulated during the course of the rave, while he was under the influence of drugs. The defendant accused of the brutal murder of DJ Wolfie was found guilty of murder in the first degree and sentenced to life in prison without parole. The third story. The accident. Last month, something very strange happened. My 4 friends and I went to a local haunted area for a scare and to kill an evening. It was about 9:00 p.m., so it was as dark as it was going to get for the night. We were arriving at the spot when it started to get extremely foggy to the point where you could hardly see in front of you. Definitely the scene for a scary evening. We started to slow down to park, and I saw a look of terror on my friend's face. A look of terror that no one can fake. He then said accelerate, in a tone that both intrigued and terrified me at the same time. Without really thinking, I just sped up about 10 miles per hour faster than I had been going, just assuming that the spot we were in scared him a bit. As we went farther up the road, the restlessness that he felt only proceeded to get worse. At this point I just wanted to get out of where we were, as his fear was beginning to rub off on me as I continued to pick up speed. I saw what had scared him so bad. I had only seen it for a split second before I heard the crunches and felt the car go over a bump that no one would want to acknowledge, but was impossible to ignore. I panicked in a way that I never had before, and stopped the car with such force that we all jerked forward into what was in front of us, ignoring the pain with adrenaline and shock. We got out to inspect what my fear and carelessness had done, and after seeing what was there, I wish I had kept driving. The man was lying in a pool of blood, his chest flattened from one line of wheels, and his feet flattened from the other line. It was a sight that I knew would stick in my mind as well as my friends, for as long as we shall all live. After the disgust and horror we all witnessed, I convinced everyone to get back into the car. Once we all got into the car, the weather had completely cleared, as if attention in the area had been relieved. I had no choice but to take all of my friends home with the scars that I knew would haunt them for the rest of their lives. On the way home, no one spoke of the gore that we had just witnessed, and I had no problem with that. I felt like there had been a presence following us, but I just brushed it off as shock and went on with my driving. I dropped off all of my friends, making them promise that the event would never be spoken of to anyone. I then made my way to my house to cleanse my car of the horror that it had endured. I hosed my tires and bumper off, then went into the house to take a shower. I still had the feeling of a presence, which had begun to give me a very unsettling feeling in the pit of my stomach. But I knew that it was just guilt as the mind's form of karmic retribution. No one can completely get away with something. I went to bed once I got out of the shower, hoping that I could sleep this terrible night from existence. It took about 2 hours for me to finally fall asleep, but that would be the worst mistake of my life. I woke up about 3 hours later to the worst sight of my life. At the foot of my bed, I saw the face of my accident. Sitting no more than 2 feet away from me was the personification of fear. His body was mangled, his chest was flat, and along with the lower half of his legs. He sensed my being awake through my fear, and turned to look at me. He had no eyes, but the socket showed all of the pain and anger that he felt. This was coupled, however, with a sick sense of amusement that he got from the control that he had over my sanity. He lunged for me, getting within mere inches from my face. Even though he had no eyes, I still felt as though he could see right into my very light of existence. He then whispered in a tone of pure terror forever, and crawled out of my room. I ran out of my house into my car and drove. I drove for 6 hours straight, well into the daytime. I don't know what that creature was, but I do know that he will be forever with me as a constant reminder of how fear and panic can ruin one's life.